Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
Welcome in, college football fans. Welcome to the first ever college football red zone debate show. I hope you boys are pumped. I'm pumped. I am not your host, but I am your moderator, AT, coming from Tampa 2 College Football, which, by the way, today was named the future of college football media. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. That was coming from bzzr.com, which everyone should go check out. So great brand that was hyping us up. We are the future of college football media. But I am joined today by what I would call an encyclopedia of knowledge in the college football space, in Jake and Reed Napper here. These guys know way more than I do about the sport. They humble me every single day, and they have ranked every team. They've done every rating. They've done record predictions. They know everything about every team. But that's not what we're here to answer today. What we're here to answer today is, can they convince me of their points? And that's what we're going to debate. So, boys, how you feeling tonight?
Listen, I could not be more ecstatic that we're going to be able to come out here and do this. We got some good quirks out here, and I'm just glad that we're able to get this going here. You know, gotta have some fun here as we get a little bit closer to the start of college football season, man. Like, I'm so excited to be able to do this.
Heck yeah.
My fellow Americans. I'm here to prove tonight that I do, in fact, know ball. AT has selected a handful of questions for Jake and I to duke it out with, but I will come out on top. I will triumph, and I will prove to Colton that I do know ball. And I do watch the games.
For Colton to know who is the best at the end of the day.
Yes, to prove him wrong.
But yeah, we have some questions here that I'm going to ask the boys. We'll let them debate. We'll let them go one at a time. No interrupting. None of that. We have the gavel in case we hear any nonsense. We will smack the gavel down, and I don't want to break anything over here, so don't make me do that. But yeah, we got some questions. I'll let you guys go first. I'm going to time you. I'll hold up my iPhone with the timer on it. And yeah, we'll see what happens here. So I'm going to kick us off with the first question. We're going to keep it light. We're going to keep it fun. Easy question. Just something that me and the boys used to ask each other all the time when we're talking college football. This is just kind of an interesting deal. Reed, I'm going to let you kick us off here with this question. Would you rather have an experienced quarterback, somebody that's been there, senior, with a freshman offensive line, or would you rather have a experienced offensive line with a freshman quarterback? What do you think would help you win a championship, I guess?
AT, first off, thank you for being our moderator tonight. I really appreciate you coming on the program again. I personally am in the route of having a more experienced offensive line, and I've said this on the program before in the past, that offensive line and trench play is really important to how I view teams and how I grade teams. So I lean towards a more experienced offensive line, mainly because if you can't run the damn ball, you can't do anything. That's my mindset. If you can't run the ball, like the Iowa Hawkeyes and be effectively 8-4 every year guaranteed, then you can't do a lick of anything. And again, I use Iowa as an example because they haven't had good quarterback play for the past decade and have been consistently running the ball, putting in NFL running backs consistently behind a stacked offensive line. Iowa is up there putting the most offensive linemen in the league every other year. So if you can't run the ball effectively, you can't do much of anything. And another good example is Miami last year. That offensive line was stacked. They lose a ton of that going into next season. I mean, just solely off the back of that, Mark Fletcher was able to run for over 1,300 yards, and Mark Fletcher hasn't done a lick of anything before last season. So if you don't have an experienced line, I feel like you can makeshift a quarterback play. But if they have time to throw, that basically makes up for bad quarterback play. If you give them enough time, they can find out something. I rest my case.
Perfect time. Right in time. Jake, how do you respond?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go in a different direction than my opponent here tonight. And AT, I appreciate you moderating this particular chat here tonight as well. So you got to ask yourself the $1 million question last season. Would you rather have the Ole Miss offense or would you rather have the Notre Dame offense? Because if you really think about it, Notre Dame had that experience across the rest of the roster, but CJ Carr was very inexperienced. You know who was not inexperienced, though? Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, we saw this happen in the college football playoff this year. You know, Trinidad going up against the Georgia Bulldogs, going up against the best coach in the SEC in Kirby Smart. And guess what? Trinidad Chambliss, even though he had the second best team on the field, outside of him, he was able to make those dynamic plays, and he led Ole Miss past the Georgia Bulldogs. He really should have had opportunity to beat Miami, even though Miami had a better roster across the board. And on top of that as well, you can make those checks at the line of scrimmage. You know every read. Whereas if you are an inexperienced quarterback, you may not know where to go with the football. So that's going to cap you offensively, force you to run the ball a little bit more. And frankly, that's going to make you a little bit more predictable offensively, to the point is you don't know what your offensive line is. Doesn't matter how good your offensive line is going to be. If you're going to be more predictable because you're trying to protect your quarterback, that's going to limit your ceiling as an offense. So give me the inexperienced offensive line and an experienced quarterback.
Great points, Jake, to be honest. And Reed, I'll give you, a little time here since he did get to go after you. Do you have any closing remarks on what he said there?
Would Fernando Mendoza have been as effective and as productive last year if he wasn't behind the best offensive line in the Big Ten?
Great follow-up. Great follow-up question.
Because he didn't have that offensive line at Cal. He was
right.
he was okay at Cal, but he wasn't Heisman worthy at Cal.
Yeah, true. Very true. Here's what I'll say. And you boys made some fantastic points. I did have a bias coming into this question. I think that I was leaning towards Reed, to be honest. I like a good experienced offensive line. Jake has done a fantastic job of convincing me otherwise, though. I have got to give him the point. Because of my bias, I had to come into it and hear him clear-headed. And I think what he was saying about OM's offense as much and bold, Jake. Bold with me as the moderator, using them as a good example. I mean, I almost deduct points just for that alone, but here we are. I can let my bias go, and I will say you did a great job. What you said about OM, what they did, and honestly, it made me think about in the past, you've had a lot of teams that go farther with more experienced quarterbacks. And I thought about Reed's point at the beginning where he said Iowa and how Iowa's done great, and they have, and I agree with that. But one thing we noticed, the minute they get a good quarterback in there, now we're talking about them playing for a playoff. But one thing that has never changed with Iowa is their good offensive line play. So good job, Jake. I gave you the point there. Let's move on to the second question, which I feel like you guys might even agree on here. And Jake, you're going to start us off now. Who's the best wide receiver in the country, Jeremiah Smith or Malachi Toney? Or is there a secret third option that I'm too crazy to know about? Go ahead. Yeah,
because do you want me to jump off, or you want?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I will say this because like an honorable mention here, KJ Duff absolutely needs to be included in that conversation. He's an absolutely incredible wide receiver. Doesn't get that same glove because Rutgers hasn't been a relevant football team over the past decade plus, even with Greg Schiano as the head coach. That being said, though, I'm going to go with Jeremiah Smith. I really have Jeremiah Smith and Malachi Toney as a 1A and 1B type of situation. So if you're going to say Malachi Toney is the best guy, I'm not going to even go not too much pushback for me. But at the same time, how I'm looking at is I think Jeremiah Smith has the similar kind of athletic traits, but I think that he's a more physically gifted wide receiver, just from a verticality standpoint. He carries more weight, so he's able to take harder hits. And frankly, and we saw this happen during the playoff run for Miami. Jeremiah Smith just takes better care of the football. Malachi Tony was very loose with the football, and he made some mistakes that almost cost his team a chance to advance further. Think about that Miami game against Texas A&M, or thinking about that game in Ole Miss. He's turned the ball over a couple of times. So because I think that Jeremiah Smith is a little bit more physically gifted, and I also think that he's been doing it longer and he takes better care of the football, I'm going to go with Jeremiah Smith here.
Like it. Great points, Reed. What's your response?
It's perfect because I wrote the other name down on my notes, so that's perfect because I knew Jake. I've done a good amount of shows with Jake so far. I feel like I know him pretty well. I read him. I was the safety up top, read the quarterback's eyes, got that interception. For me, it is Malachi Tony, and solely because when you look at that Ohio State receiver room and who Jeremiah Smith has played with in his first years of college football, Carnell Tate, Emeka Egbuka, not even reminding you, Brandon Innes returns this year, and you bring in Chris Henry Jr., who was the top receiver in this past class. Malachi Tony set the freshman record for the most receptions ever with 109. Wide receiver 2 on Miami last year, Keelan Marion, had 500 less yards than Malachi Tony, and he was the second wide receiver. Malachi Tony finished with over 1,200 receiving yards as a true freshman. Now, Jake, you did bring up a good point. He did show some times to put the ball in dangerous spots and potentially turn the ball over. But that's just the freshman worries. That's just the jitters. You're playing in the college football playoff as a freshman. And it's going to be more interesting because I think Malachi Tony is more versatile. You can put him in special packages in the backfield, motions, screen game. Put him in the slot out wide, try to disguise him. It's going to be more interesting this year that they bring Cooper Barkate, and he's upgrading at quarterback with Darian Mensah. I really think
we got to call time on it. Minute 30 is up. Well, I love it though, Reed. I love the passion. This is what I was talking about. This is what we needed. We want to get each other at each other's heads. The debate show. That's what it's all about. I did give Reed time last time to respond. Jake, do you have any final thoughts? Just close us out here.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you giving me a chance to give my final thoughts on the situation at hand. And let me say this about Jeremiah Smith, and let me ask if you feel the same way about Malachi Tony. We saw Jeremiah Smith as a true freshman, and we saw right away that Jeremiah Smith was arguably wide receiver 1 dating back to his true freshman year. And if the NFL allowed it, he could have gone as a first-round pick in the NFL draft as a true freshman. And do we feel the same way about Malachi Tony? I'm not so sure. And if we even want to take it from a statistical standpoint, if you want to compare these two receivers, even though there was more options in that Ohio State receiving room than what you saw from that Miami receiving room last year, and even though Jeremiah Smith played 3 less games than Malachi Tony over the course of last season, he still put up 30 more yards. He still put up 2 more touchdowns as well. So, I mean, again, tremendous amount of respect for Malachi Tony, but Jeremiah Smith is one of one.
Wow, that was great points. The closer Jake just put in was unbelievable with the specifically mentioning the 3 games he missed, but still putting up more yards, more touchdowns. That's crazy. I didn't even know that actually. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it. So
yeah, and it wasn't because neither guy missed any injuries. Neither guy has any injury issues. Just Miami played 4 playoff games and Ohio State only played 1.
Right. Yeah, you're right, because Miami beat him head to head, so he had no opportunity to play those 3 extra games.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was a team game.
It is a team game, and Ohio State lost that team game last time I checked.
Here's what I'll say about it. I think that, all the talking heads, all the CFB media is going to give us one answer here. There's one outstanding answer that everybody's going to say, and it's Jeremiah Smith. We know it. We know we're going to hear that name. But I think Reed did a fantastic job selling Malachi Tony. I'm hype on him. Freshman, talking about his stats. He took it over. Got to give you the point there, Reed. Great job. Took round 2.
AT, that was just for you because I know you're a Darian Mensah guy. That was just for you.
Love to hate Darian Mensah. Love Malachi Tony. I'll say that. I am biased towards him, no doubt. Love to watch both those guys next year. But, honestly, when we're talking New York, I think we see Jeremiah Smith there. We probably don't see Malachi Tony, at the Heisman race at the end of the year. But we'll see. Time will tell. He does have a better quarterback next year in Miami. I will say that. Okay, so now more stuff that you guys can get heated about, and this one's just open-ended. We're not even going to bring up two names here. Who's the best quarterback in the country? Reed, you can kick us off. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Now, this was a tough one for me because, as you said, AT, the talking heads are going to put out a bunch of names that are consensusly at the top. You got Julian Sane, you got Trinidad Chambliss, you got you have a consistent list of names. Darian Mensah, Jaden Mayava, a handful of quarterbacks that are consistently at the top of these rankings. But one I've consistently seen near the top, if not in the top 3 consistently, and it's Dante Moore of Oregon. I think there's regression in the mean for the other quarterbacks that I mentioned. Julian Sane, he led the country in completion percentage last year. There's no way he replicates that again. There's no way that happens again. Trinidad Chambliss, I'm not saying he's not a fantastic quarterback in his own right, but the fact that he came in, lit the world on fire, and was in a Heisman race, I don't think that happens again. Dante Moore might have the best weapons around him of anyone in the country next year. Brings back Evan Stewart, who missed all of last year due to injury. DeCorey Moore was one of the best freshman wide receiver in the country. You bring in Jamari Johnson, who everyone overlooks at tight end because Kenyon Sadiq was there. Jamari Johnson in his own right could have been a top 10 tight end if he was at a different school. You bring in Iverson Hooks, who had over 800 receiving yards for UAB. Jeremiah McClellan is also a receiver returning on this team. You also bring in a former 4-star prospect and Andrew Olesh at tight end for Penn State. Dante Moore would have been the bona fide number 1 quarterback in this class last year behind Fernando Mendoza if he went into the draft. Fernando Mendoza was only the number 1 pick because he won the damn Heisman. If Dante Moore was in this class, he would have been the bona fide number 1 pick. So for me, it's pretty clear cut. Dante Moore is the best quarterback in the country returning next year. I rest my case.
Wow. Well said, Reed. I love the comment in the chat. It popped up for a brief second there. That was awesome. Don't know if I can trust a Penn State fan when it comes to QB talk, but we'll see. We'll see what Jake has to say. That's how we do this. We still give our man, Mr. CEO, Jake, a chance. What you got, Jake? 2 minutes to you.
Yeah, and I'm definitely here where Reed's coming from. I mean, I thought Dante Moore was going to be the number 2 overall pick in this NFL draft. I thought that he was going to go to the New York Jets, and then thought he was going to have his NFL career ruined in a matter of 3 to 4 years if he went to the Jets. But with that being said, I really look at Trinidad Chambliss, and I think he is an absolutely special football player. I think he's frankly a hungrier football player, given his Division II pathway to get to the FBS level, starting off as a backup quarterback because no one really knew his name, but he showed right away when he was on the field. He is one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. I think that he is a more dynamic athlete than Dante Moore, with his ability to extend plays with his legs, as well as to create some really high-level throws down the field. And I just really go back to that playoff run as well. In those big game moments where it really matters the most, I think Trinidad Chambliss did a better job of showing up in those big game moments. Trinidad Chambliss was not the reason that they lost in the college football playoff. You can't say that about Dante Moore. Dante Moore, there was a lot of reasons why Oregon lost to Indiana in the semifinals of the college football playoff, but Dante Moore was definitely one of those reasons. You can't say that about Trinidad Chambliss. I would even go a step further, to be honest with you. You put Trinidad Chambliss on Miami instead of Carson Beck, Miami is going to be your national champions. I genuinely believe that because they almost won a national title with Carson Beck, and all 3 of us, have our reservations about Carson Beck.
So does the entire NFL. But.
Yeah. so does the entire NFL. And so even with Carson Beck at quarterback, Miami still had a chance to win the national championship on that final drive. You put Trinidad Chambliss in there, who's a more dynamic player and I think a better decision maker, we could be seeing a different national champion.
Look, I like the points. I mean, these are some great points. I feel like there's not many people that will say Trinidad Chambliss is the best college football quarterback in all of the game. Here's what I'll say about both of these things. I'm going to pick this off of more of what I actually believe here, who I actually believe is the better quarterback, because I think you guys both had some really good points, really passionate points. What I'll say about Trinidad Chambliss, a lot of people didn't talk much about him until the playoffs. I think he is a fantastic quarterback. What he did against Georgia, 1 of 1. I literally 1 of 1. I think there's literally one person that could have done that last year, and that was him. Fantastic game. The problem is, I think he was playing pissed off because he lost Lane Kiffin. I think that he was playing outside of his mind through that playoff. And I don't think that that's something that he is going to sustain going into next season. fantastic quarterback. I think he played really good throughout the season, but for whatever reason in the playoffs, he was elevated. So with that being said, I do think Dante Moore is the best quarterback in the country. Reed convinced me. Got to give him a point there.
We're back.
It's also tough for me too, and you guys know I am a State fan. There is bias there, but that is my true, honest, unbiased feeling when it comes to Trinidad Chambliss. I think he's a great quarterback.
18. My opponent is trying to just rile you up. He's just trying to get under your skin with all this biasy.
Yeah,
what the big question is, is AT trying to rage bait all of us? That's really the $1 million question here.
Absolutely. That's why we set this up in the first place, right? All right, so here could be the final question. We have a fifth one in case we need it, but just kind of, it's kind of the talk of the town right now. The Big Ten is the dominant conference. They are the big dog, as everyone likes to say. We've seen them win a couple national championships now, back to back to back. So the question is, are they the premier conference in college football? And on top of that, if they are or if they aren't, who is the deepest conference from top to bottom? So who's the premier conference? But also, who is the deepest from top to bottom? And is that the same conference? I think you guys know what I'm saying there. Jake, you can get us started this time. You got 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you made the distinction between the premier conference and the deepest conference, because I think there's two different answers there when it comes to that question. You want to talk about a premier conference. What is the goal for many of these teams that are in power conferences, or at least a good chunk of the teams in the Big Ten and the SEC and a handful of teams in the ACC and the Big 12? And that is to win a national championship. So you want to talk about a premier conference from a standpoint of who I think is most likely going to win a national championship moving forward, especially with the shifts that we've seen in NIL. I got to go with the Big Ten in this one, because I think when it comes to Indiana, when it comes to Oregon, when it comes to Ohio State, I think the Big Ten's top class outmatches the SEC's top class right now. Now, whether you want to go from a perception of depth, I got to go with the SEC here. I think the middle tier is still better than the Big Ten's middle tier right now. And even the bottom tier, Arkansas, Kentucky, your state football team, I would take that bottom tier over a Purdue or a Michigan State, or a Rutgers, right? I think those teams would match up very well. So, you want to go across the board. I'm going with the SEC, but I think the Big Ten is the premier conference from a standpoint of national championship viability.
Yeah, great points. I feel like that's kind of, how we all feel in some way, shape, or form. But I'm interested to see what Reed has to say about
it. AT. You're down there. You're down there in the South. You're down there in Mississippi, so you can experience this firsthand. Aside from the past 3 years, when the Big Ten is really, gotten its hands around the world of college football, winning 3 straight national championships out of that conference. There was only one conference that could say they dominated college football for that long, and that was the SEC. It's just like the Netflix series. Any team can beat any other team any given Saturday. Vanderbilt, who was the laughingstock of the entire conference for my entire life until last year, won 10 games. The last time Vanderbilt won 10 games in football? The 1900s, not the 1910s or 20s, the 1900s, the turn of the century. When was the last time Rutgers or Purdue won 10 games out of nowhere? Could you tell me that? Because I couldn't tell you. I don't know the last time Rutgers or Purdue won 10 plus games. And although the SEC hasn't won a national championship in the last 3 years, they have the most teams that realistically have a shot to win the national championship. And to answer your second question, the deepest conference is also the SEC. 9 teams finished with 8 or more wins. 7 teams finished with a winning record in conference play. A team that finished with 1 conference loss still made a bowl game, even after all of the teams that decided not to play a bowl game. Lower teams still have a lot of star power. I'm looking at you, South Carolina, primarily. You have 2 potential first-round draft picks on your team and still can't even manage a 500 record. Kentucky, Florida, Auburn, all rebuilt. And, the bottom of the SEC would be an easily middle-of-the-pack Big Ten team at the least. So it's easily the SEC is the deepest, and the SEC is still the most dominant conference in college football.
Wow. I would say that's almost a hot take, Reed. I feel like people, especially in your neck of the woods, would not be happy hearing that,
My own family wouldn't be happy hearing that, but, I said it.
I love it. I love that we're just kicking our bias out and maybe yet again leaning towards what I would maybe agree with a lot of times. I'm obviously a SEC guy, but Jake, I will give you a chance to respond here. I think I forgot to do that last round. That's on me, the moderator. I'll take that L. But Jake, I'll give you a chance to respond here to read what you got.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of people point to the dominance that the SEC had, like over the course of the 2000s. The SEC being responsible for winning a lot of those national championships over in the 2000s and in the 2010s. But we are in a new era of college football, ladies and gentlemen. Ever since the NIL era kicked off in 2021, I mean, it's been a different song and dance. We have 5 seasons of data to go off of this now. The Big Ten has won 3 championships in a row, whether it's Michigan in 2024, Ohio State winning it all in 2025, and we just saw Indiana win it in 2026. And yes, the SEC has shown its depth by getting plenty of teams in the college football playoff, but they haven't performed very well once they actually make it into the college football playoff. And that's even with the help of having the benefit of the doubt more than some of these other conferences in as well, to the irony of many of the other fan bases outside of the Southeastern Conference. So yes, they have dominated in the past, but we're in a new era, and that just doesn't apply the same way anymore, which is why I still genuinely believe, hey, I think from a premier national championship competing standpoint, I think the Big Ten has passed the SEC.
Yeah, I like it. One thing I'll say about this, and obviously SEC guy here, both great points. I think you guys did a fantastic job. One thing that stood out to me is one of Jake's first points he made when he said, what is the goal with these conferences, with these teams, with these universities? It's to win national championships. And right now the Big Ten is the conference that's doing that. They're doing it over and over again. So in my mind, that makes them the premier conference, as much as I hate to say it, even though I do agree that the SEC is the deepest. Clearly the deepest conference in all of college football. Your bottom tier teams would smoke other bottom tier teams in the Big Ten, or at least that's what I might have to tell myself. But with that being said, I got to give the point to Jake. I think you did a great job there. We're tied up going in to what I didn't really give you guys.
Rutgers. Rutgers.
Yeah, we would kill Rutgers. Come on, you know what I'm saying?
Who on your team is guarding KJ Duff?
Oh, dude, come on. You kidding me? We got Kelly back there, Kelly Jones back there. Oh, my God. You're talking about a first rounder. You're talking about a former – yeah, honestly, though, former first rounder on that guy. Or not former, I should say, future first rounder. My bad. He's a dog, man. He's shutting him down. Yeah, come on. Come on, man. We got so many guys. Isaac Smith. Don't even start it, Reed. Now I'm about to start debating. I'm the moderator here.
He's about to throw the phone away.
All right, last question, boys. And this was something that I feel like we all do probably agree on at some point in some way, shape, or form. The expanded playoff. How are we feeling about it? Reed, you can start us off. Jake started last time. How are we feeling about the expanded playoff?
Blasphemy, idiotic, disgusting. You could use any adjective you want to describe what the 2014 playoff would do to the world of college football. At the end of the day, the college football is all about making money. I completely understand that. And if anyone that tells you the college football playoff is not solely about making money is casual and is dumbfounded about the world of college football.
Some people would call them a bozo.
Some people would call them a bozo in all caps in a group chat. I'm not going to disclose that, though. So my main point is, if you were to expand the playoff to 24 teams, what's to stop them from going to 36? What's to stop them from going to 48? What's to stop us from saying every team realistically, mathematically has a legit shot to win the national championship at the start of the year, which isn't true. And AT, you've told us that, you've said this in private in our group chat before. The college football playoff is supposed to be the cream of the crop. It's supposed to be the most selective club in college football. And we're opening the doors to, I'm just going to say a team, nothing personal. Detroit Trojans realistically have like a 0.1% chance to make the playoff and then go on and win a national championship. That, like, you could basically say that about the entire group of 6. No disrespect to the group of 6, but they realistically have like a 0.1% chance to win the national championship. Like, it's even like, why are we even having this discussion?
Yeah.
If we're trying to crown the best team in college football, you could basically eliminate 85% of the sport, realistically.
guess Reed rests his case on that. That was good. I mean, and a lot of things that we all, you can't deny. These are just facts. These are just this is just the game that we know and love. This is just how it is from a lot of what Reed was saying. But Jake, interested to hear your thoughts. Are you for the 2014 playoff by chance or totally against it?
So I think that if it's implemented correctly, I would be in support of the 2014 playoff. Listen, I know that there's been a lot of controversy and there's a lot of blasphemy surrounding the talk of expanding the 24 teams. But if it's really such a bad playoff format, why does it work so effectively at the FCS ranks? Why does it work so effectively at the Division II ranks? Why does it work effectively at the Division III ranks? Right? So like we've seen this applied to every other level of college football, going from the FCS ranks down to JUCO football. And we've seen the regular season still maintained intact. You can ask, CSG Montana State, and those guys would definitely tell you firsthand, hey, we still have a tremendous care and respect for the regular season, which I think is what we all care about. Now, with that being said, we got to make sure we implement it the right way. And here's how I think we get to that 2014 playoff while also at the same time maintaining that urgency of the regular season. First and foremost, every conference champion, I think, gets into the 2014 playoff. When you get that many playoff bids, you get every conference champion in. Even for the more agnostic fan, you give them an opportunity to tune into some of these other leagues, which I think helps the exposure of the G6. And then
not to cut you off, Jake, but I have a question there. I'll pause your time. I have a question there on that. You said all the conference champions should deserve to get in, but with the 2014 playoff expanding, they're talking about getting rid of the conference championships outright. What do you feel about that in that regard? How do you manage the conference championships if they're going to get rid of them? How do you get that bid?
Yeah, and that's going to come down to making sure that we standardize our tiebreaker systems. We can't have a situation with what happened with the ACC or the Mountain West because that was ridiculous. So it comes down to like really three simple things, head-to-head, common opponents, whether that happens in conference play or non-conference play, or you go down to that third tiebreaker, go to the college football playoff rankings. And that you standardize it across the board. That's how you go ahead and avoid these crazy tiebreakers, because we do have some incredibly sized conferences that's going to make it a little bit harder to do it traditionally.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there. I don't know if you can finish your other point there if you still had it. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw a wrench in your.
Yeah, and then so for the bigger conferences, to make sure that we don't make it a conference invitational for 2 of the 10 conferences in major college football, we also cap the number of teams. Cap of the 6 teams for conferences. I mentioned this on Twitter earlier. You do that so that even the bigger conferences, you stay invested, because let's be honest, if you're the 7th or 8th best team in your conference, you don't deserve to play for a national championship. I'm sorry. So, and you're still getting, if you hit that 16 threshold, you're still getting a quarter of the field.
Yeah. Okay. Great points. And I interrupted you mid debate. You kept your flow. I wouldn't have been able to do that. That was awesome. Great job, Jake. Reed, do you have any closing thoughts on this one?
Yeah, AT, that was the only compliment that Jake is going to get tonight on his points. So I'm glad he got something, to compliment about. Why are we even having this debate if we're going? I mean, I agree with Jake's point. We should cap it at a certain amount for specific conferences, but realistically, the 3rd and 4th team in specific conferences don't have a realistic shot. You mean to tell me that Virginia could have won a playoff game last year and realistically made a national championship if they ended up making the playoff? Come on, let's be realistic. Virginia might have won the conference. They wouldn't have gotten in. If Duke got in, because realistically Duke would have gotten in last year, even because as a conference champion, they would not have had a shot. They lost 5 games. Come on. That's complete blasphemy. Yep. That's not realistically. It should just be the top 5 conference champions as it is, and then you fill it out with at-larges as it should be. And I say this one more time as my final point. We've only had 2 full years of the 12-team playoff. Why are we trying to expand it? We don't even have a real good sample size. It's all for greed. It's all for money, and it's all for exposure, which is really the only thing positive that's coming out of an expanded playoff is just exposure for more teams, more national college football fans like us, instead of just solely focusing on your team and conference.
Yeah, great point, guys. I mean, one thing I'll say, Jake, about you that I'll commend you on is you're talking about expanding the 2014 playoff from a purely fan perspective. You're not talking about it from a money perspective, which obviously is all that the people that are making these decisions care about. They don't care about what the points you were making are good selling points for them, but what they're really wanting to do is add more games to add more revenue. And that's why I'm kind of vehemently against it, because they talk about getting rid of bowl games. They talk about getting rid of conference championships. Not saying those things happen right away, but the fact that that's even in the cards for us, I think ruins the integrity of our game. When you get guys' business in, God agrees with me, Jake, obviously. The moderator speaks. So,
if you lose me, you know what happened here.
You cannot expand the playoff. It's obvious. That's the answer. But I will say, I think, Jake, your arguments were great. It was all from a fan perspective. I can tell that you're just trying to debate Reed here, because Reed kind of took the stance of going anti it. But I got to give Reed the point. I agree with his point. I am so anti the 2014 playoff. I think there's a lot of good that it can do. I think the FCS has done well at it, but I think we need to keep it at 12 right now. So.
Yeah, and that's fair, because candidly, like, if we had the choice between staying at 12 and going to 24, I would stay at 12, because I think the 12-team playoff is perfectly fine. But I could see a way where we could implement 24 and still keep that the urgency of the regular season, which I think is what we all want at the end of the day. And it also creates the opportunity of having more home playoff games. Instead of having just the first round being home playoff games and then every other round after that happening at a New Year's Six Bowl, we could have the first round being home playoff games, and then the quarterfinal could also be home playoff games too. So those top 8 teams also get a chance to host a game on their home campus, which I think would be really awesome for the sport. Again, it would need to implement it the right way. I don't trust college football leadership to doing that. But if I was in charge, and we had to go to 24, that's how I would do it.
I will say.
And let me be candid as well. If we were to go to 24, I would go with the model of our CEO, our commissioner.
That's literally exactly what I was going to say. If there's a way to do it, that's the way to do it. I 100% agree with that. We hope that's what ends up happening. It sounds like we're going to 24, so hopefully that's what happens when we go to 24. So
I trust the college football leadership to implement it as much as I trust Mario Cristobal's late game management.
As much as you trust Mario Cristobal in the month of November.
And as much as you trust Notre Dame putting together a decent schedule.
Yeah, but somehow Mario Cristobal in December and January is a stud. He gets out of it.
Is elite. Yeah.
his playoff, he just gets November just kills him. It's literally 1 month, But yeah.
As much as we trust South Carolina to close it out against Texas A&M up 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. That was still wild that happened. Like, can we
I will never forget Shane Beamer running into that locker room at halftime.
That was crazy.
He literally won NCAA 26 national championship. That first half. That's literally how we react to rebuilding a team and you winning your first national championship.
Yeah, for real. You're right. Yeah. But he had a Heisman guy that you think he had the best defense. That was crazy. That's an insane picture. Golly. Well, boys, I will say, great job, Reed. You took the dub tonight. We'll have to give it to you. But great points all the way around. Happy to moderate here. Like I said, I'm not the host. I am just the moderator tonight. Happy to bring it to you from Tampa 2 over here. I have nothing else to say. I think you guys did a fantastic job. Like I said, encyclopedia of knowledge. Know so much about the game, and they did a fantastic job convincing me on some tough points tonight. So, great job, gentlemen. Great job. I guess we can say it's adjourned, right? Let me hit it one more time. There we go. We're done.
Yeah, we got a gavel in. But hey, guys, really appreciate you guys coming through and watching tonight's stream. I know it's a little bit on the shorter side, but definitely wanted to get this out. We've been playing this for months, just haven't had the opportunity to actually get it out. Hopefully we can make this happen a little bit more often as we get through, the rest of the summertime. So if you enjoyed it and you have some feedback, definitely let us know either in the live chat or in the in the comment section down below if you're watching this after the fact. AT, really appreciate you moderating here tonight. The gavel has to be gonna have to be a mainstay on the show, even if it has nothing to do with it. Just anytime someone says something completely out of pocket, we got to make a segment. We got to come up with some cool name for AT's gavel.
Yeah. Oh, there will be, I'm sure.
Like Tampa 2 Law or something. I don't know. I'm just workshopping here. But hey, in the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching. And from here, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good night. Take care, everybody.
Peace.